Hi YouTube. Today I want to talk about a very serious and common topic nowadays. I want to talk about depression, my experience with being depressed, and some of the ways that I've been able to overcome it. Now I would say that I've fully overcome it and I am no longer depressed and I actually have joy in my life, which is hard to even believe that's possible. Um, so I just want to share with you my experience and the thing that finally helped me overcome my depression. First off, I just want to say that I would say that I've been depressed for like most of my life. I would say for what seemingly the past 15 or so years, and um, it's hard to find hope when most of your life looks like that. To kind of show you the progression of my depression, and it's nothing professional, but hear me out. So these were my early years, and I started off, I would say, kind of an innocent kid. I'm pretty introverted, and what I found is that during the high school days, it was hard for me to make friends, and because of that, I was very lonely, and it was definitely a downhill spiral. And a big reason for that, why I think, is I was watching so many shows and just they portrayed a sense of reality that I wanted to live, and when it wasn't working out the way that I thought it was going to, because in these shows everyone was living a certain way, I often become depressed because my life was just not turning out the way I wanted it to be, and I didn't have many friends, which disappointed a lot of people in my family, and definitely was a disappointment to me. Not to say I wasn't to blame for that, but the more that I blamed myself, the worse my depression became. And so I finally got out of that cave for a little bit when I was a senior in high school, and I discovered a guy by the name of Jocko Willink, who, if you know who I'm talking about, has some great practical wisdom. And basically, I started to implement discipline into my life, and this was very helpful for a while. I noticed that my life went from it went from this, where I was just going straight down, to a bunch of ups and downs. And it felt great going up, but it did not feel good going down. The discipline did help a lot. It gave me something to work for, gave me something to do, and gave me some purpose, but it was never permanent. And unfortunately, it did not fix the problem. It did good when I could tap into it, but unfortunately, I was still lonely. I was still had shortcomings, and I could just never stop blaming myself for that and suffering for it. And so, after a while, um, I kind of hit rock bottom, and I finally decided to pick up my Bible and read the book of John. And what I realized was the Jesus that I thought I knew growing up And the Bible that I thought I knew growing up was not the same until I read it for myself. And I made some friends who were extremely loving and extremely kind, and they shared the gospel with me, that Jesus did love me, and that he died for me, and that all I had to do is trust in him. And I quickly found that when I started putting my hope in Jesus, my depression went away. And you might not want to hear that that is the solution. I certainly didn't want to hear that either. Once again, because I thought I knew Jesus when I didn't. Because the culture says a lot about who Jesus is. And a lot of times the culture is wrong. That's why you should read the Bible. But I realized that I could never have constant satisfaction, that I could never truly be happy from the things inside the world. Discipline was good, but it was limited to the world. Jesus is the only one who is outside of the world, and no matter how much the world breaks, he will always be there for you, and he will always give you a reason, no matter how bad things get. And I simply could not find that in anything else. And that is when my life started, my depression, I should say, more than anything. This is how I went from this all the way to this. You have to have hope in something that is outside the world. I don't want to say that's the only way, but I'm telling you it is. And Jesus is the only way. He says that he's the only way in John 14:6. You may not like that, but it may be what you need to hear. And I'm here to tell you that Jesus does love you too, no matter what you've done. You just have to go to him. And the reason why I say that Jesus is the only way for your depression to be gone, amongst other issues, stems from a talk that he had with the woman at a well in John 4. So Jesus meets this woman at a well, and he says to her, "Give me a drink." And she said to him, the Samaritan woman, "How is it that you, being a Jew, ask me for a drink since I am a Samaritan woman?" For typically the Jews did not deal with the Samaritans at the time. And Jesus answered and said to her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is who says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." She said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where, then, do you get that living water? You are not greater than the father Jacob, are you, who gave us the well and drank of it himself, and his sons and his cattle?" Jesus answered her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will thirst again. But whoever drinks of the water that I give to him shall never thirst again." Jesus is the permanent solution. This does not just apply to no longer being depressed. It also applies to having peace in life. Jesus is the only way to having permanent peace. And when I finally accepted that, that is the only thing that kicks my depression long term. I hope this helps. God bless.